If you guys have not heard by now, the international spat that happened between President Trump, Vice President J.D. Vance, and Ukrainian President Zelensky, then you might have been unplugged from the whole media, because everyone from Forbes to CNN to Fox to even YouTubers talking about what happened a few days ago when the Ukrainian president that's been in power since 2019 and Trump talked about ending the Ukrainian war with Russia that's been actually going on since 2014 when the civil war coup happened and they were supported by Russia, but then Russia fully invaded in 2022. And if you guys don't know, I'm actually a Ukrainian myself. I'm an immigrant to the United States. So America is my home country, and I'm a patriot of America. Of course, I'm a born-again Christian first, and Jesus is my king, but Trump is my president, of course. And as an American, not because Trump's my president, but because he does represent the Constitution really well so far, not perfect, but because I'm an American and a patriotic citizen, I see through the lens of how Ukraine sees it, but also through how America sees it. And the other thing is that that I've seen also is that I've been inside the war zone, one of the cities that was actually taken by Ukrainian separatists in the east. And again, I'll get to the idea of what Ukraine separatists did in 2014. Ukraine took it back, so I was in the DMZ, and then now this was a few years back. But now Russia, after the full-scale invasion, has taken back the city that I used to be in, and I used to do missionary work with the soldiers at the demilitarized the line of contact. So the thing is that you'll hear Zelensky talks about the line of contact too, when the war first started in 2014 till 2022, and I was in the middle of that in the line of contact on the Ukrainian side. So the thing is that I have some experience with what actually happens in the war. Now, I'm not privy to all the high-level details of Trump and EU and NATO and Zelensky, but because I've been following it for many years, I am Ukrainian, I have family there, and the thing is I understand what the both sides are claiming, but at the same time, I've always prayed and wanted to know what the truth is, despite the fact that the Ukraine hates Putin with a fiery passion, and the Russian president, of course, is not a good guy by any means. Even Trump himself said that. But you still have to work with world leaders. You can't just call them evil buffoons and then not work with them, because then you have nuclear war. So no matter what we think about other people, we still have to do diplomatic solutions, because America was always known as diplomatic solutions. Of course, we've started stupid wars that should have never began, but it's because of the CIA and the deep state, which needs to be destroyed. So that's what is happening, because from one side it hates the other side hates the other too. And you'll even hear Zelensky talking about how Putin is a terrorist. But the thing is that when that international 10-minute fireworks happened, people missed that there was actually 40 minutes of actually a cordial conversation happening until Zelensky and Vice President Vance got into a tizzy together. And I actually think that Zelensky hates Vance with a passion, because you can actually see how his demeanor changed from sitting somewhat comfortably, not really, but then he's also, he started to put his hands together, like to hide himself. In psychology, that's called, basically, he's protecting himself. So he was protecting himself from being attacked. So he felt like he was being attacked, when in reality, America, Trump, and J.D. Vance is only hope. They're the only hope of Ukraine to be saved from getting completely taken over by Russia. No matter whether you think Russia's in the wrong or in the right, the thing is that the facts are the facts. So people missed 40 minutes of actually good, cordial conversation where Trump actually praised Ukrainian soldiers. The thing is that I personally met Ukrainian soldiers, and they're valiant fighters. They were trained by American Rangers and Special Forces people. I didn't meet the American trainers, but I did meet some of the Azov battalion, which was the far right wing battalion of Ukraine, which, if you guys don't know, they were actually called out by the media before Trump came in office as being neo-far right terrorists. And they actually were pretty radical. They had like Nazi symbols on their arms and stuff. People hate Kanye for that, because he wears Nazi symbolism now, because he went haywire. His programming broke, and something happened to him crazy. But the thing is that if you have the neo-Nazis in Ukraine doing that, why was that all of a sudden taken away after Trump became president and then Russia invaded Ukraine? And so basically the media forgot about the far right people. And of course, you can make the argument, yes, they're there to defend their country. So what if they believe in some far right, I'm not far right, whatever, Nazi ideology? I actually believe it's more left than far right, because National Socialism and communism, there are two different flavors of socialism, which that's what it really is. It shouldn't be called far right. But again, I'll just say, because that's what people say, that's how people know Nazi ideology is far right. So the thing is that if you had all of these people in Ukraine who were very radical people in the party who wanted to keep fighting this war, who wanted to take the civil war to Russia, well, they kind of got control over Zelensky, because Zelensky actually wanted to end the killing of Ukrainian men. In 2019, he even said that. And by the end of this video, you'll hear the full story of what Zelensky actually wanted in 2019. But then he was told by EU, Boris Johnson, NATO, to continue the war and to not have any kind of ceasefire at any cost, because he said at any cost. So what you'll see right now is the first clip of the 40-minute, or it's a summary of the 40 minutes of what happened and how the conversation went. And so Trump wants to stop the killing, and I agree with him. This war is ridiculous. Millions have been killed on both sides. Now Zelensky lies. He lies a lot about these things. He says, no, it's only like 700,000. But in reality, they were caught saying there was almost 1 million men being killed, and then they were told to take it off. The government told one of the Ukrainian stations to take it off the air. And independent verification and analysis and Trump's intelligence agencies also told him, and now we know that there is over 1 million Ukrainians have been killed. A generation of Ukrainians. I mean, if I stayed in Ukraine, I could have been drafted. I'm in my 30s, early 30s, and I could have been drafted and been killed. For what? For knowing that there's no way Ukraine could ever win a war against Russia. I mean, it's just ridiculous. And so millions of men, no matter if you think Russia's in the wrong, and again, I'm not justifying Russia at all. I know Putin's not a good guy, and I know he's been in power for over 25 years, but the thing is that reality is reality, and you need to deal with the facts. And so Christians deal with the facts, and, should deal with the facts. And so that's because Christianity is a rational religion, even though I know atheists will say it's not. It's full of contradictions, but we can talk about that later. But in another video, and you'll see my other videos about Christianity since I'm a missionary. But the thing is that when you look at rational reality, or like real politics, you have to understand that things are not fair. Life isn't fair. We don't always get what we want, and unless we want World War III, the compromises have to be made. They just have to be made unless God steps in, because God can override human wisdom. He can override how nations hate each other and invade each other, and he can bring a solution. But people have to seek God first, and I don't know if Trump or Zelensky actually seeks Jesus. I know Trump prays, but I don't know if Zelensky actually prays either. People say he's an atheist and a Jew. No one knows, because he won't even say what he believes in. So I don't know, Zelensky's not seeking God. And even the idea of glory to Ukraine, I hear all the time. I can't be comfortable saying that. I say glory to God. I don't say glory to Ukraine, because there's things that Ukraine has done that is messed up. And war, does messed up things to people. Russia has done messed up things to Ukraine. Ukraine has done messed up things to Russia. So the thing is that saying glory to Ukraine for 10 years, since I've heard this since when I was in the war zone, is not a really good idea when there's a higher power, God, who you should be giving glory to, not to your fallen mankind. Here you go, guys, with the clip, because it'll set the stage for what I'm about to talk about.
Very hard, very close. So we've actually known each other for a long time. We've been dealing with each other for a long time, and very well. We had a little negotiation spat, but that worked out great. I think for both countries. I think for the world, actually, beyond both countries. And we have something that is a very fair deal, and we look forward to getting in and digging and working and getting some of the rare earth. But it means we're going to be inside, and it's a big commitment from the United States, and we appreciate working with you very much, and we will continue to do that. We have had some very good discussions with Russia. I spoke with President Putin, and we're going to try and bring this to a close. It's something that you want and that he wants. We have to negotiate a deal, but we've started the confines of a deal, and I think something can happen. The big thing is the number of soldiers, mostly at this point, but soldiers being killed. You're losing thousands of soldiers on both sides. We're losing a lot of soldiers, and we want to see it stop, and we want to see the money get put to different kinds of use, like rebuilding, and we're going to be working very hard. But we've had a lot of very good conversations. I will say, until we came along, the Biden administration didn't speak to Russia whatsoever. They didn't speak to anybody. They just allowed this to continue. And I will say that, I'll say in front of you, you've heard me say it 1,000 times, if I were president, this war would have never happened. We would have had a deal negotiated for you without having to go through what you've gone through. But your soldiers have been unbelievably brave. We've given them great equipment, but somebody has to use the equipment. They've been unbelievably brave, and we give them great credit. This was supposed to be over very quickly, and here we are 3 years later. So I give tremendous credit to your generals and your soldiers and yourself, in the sense that it's been very hard fighting, very tough fighting. They're great fighters, and you have to be very proud of them from that standpoint. But now we want to get it over with. It's enough, right? We want to get it over with. So it's an honor to have you here. Thank you very much for coming. We're going to sign the agreement at the conference in the East Room in a little while, right after lunch.
At the very beginning of war, because he's a killer and terrorist. But I hope that together we can stop him.
So as you heard, that was basically the summary of the first 35-40 minutes before the fireworks that we all saw online. So Trump was trying to be cordial. He was praising Ukrainian soldiers. Again, like I said, when I visited the war zone, the soldiers were brave, and I saw some of them die. You know, earlier I saw them before, and then they died the next day because of mortar fire, artillery. You know, and so the thing is that it's not, this whole war, it has to end. It just has to end. It's a stupid CIA caused globalist war. And yes, poor Ukrainian people have suffered, you know, my family as well. But if you look at the huge picture, 30,000 foot view, you have to take emotions out of it. No matter how much you hate Russia or hate Ukraine, emotions have to be taken out of it in order to really stop this conflict and actually have some sort of ceasefire and peace. And then we can talk about this future security guarantees, because people keep saying, well, Russia's going to break its things and invade again. So how do you prevent that? And yes, that's a fair question. But first things have to be done before those things are discussed. And Zelensky just had to have his way instead of really being just thankful and humble to President Trump. So anyway, so as you saw, Trump was trying to be unbiased. He's saying, I want to bring both sides to the table, and I'm not really here for you know, Ukraine, or I'm not here to represent Ukraine or love Zelensky and hate Putin, or vice versa. He just wants to be the arbiter. Now, the thing is that Trump is wanting to represent American interests. That's what he's saying. He's saying that I'm not here to represent, you know, I'm not here for Ukraine or for Russia, even though, yes, we know objectively Russia put its full-scale invasion into Ukraine. And we know that's, you know, it looks wrong, it looks bad. But the thing is that Trump is trying after 3-4 years of the American interests not being represented, of our money being just given as basically into a black hole of Ukraine, trying to win the war, which they know they can't win. They just can't. It's just obvious. There's no way Ukraine, without its nuclear arsenal. Again, yes, people say Budapest Memorandum, America should defend Ukraine because they told them to give up the nukes. Yes, we can talk about that too. But the thing is that the reality is that there's no way Ukraine can win this war. Never a possibility in the physical world outside of NATO coming in and helping, which NATO did come in and help. But outside of that, there's just no way Ukraine would be able to defeat Russia. It's just matter of fact, real reality. So the thing is that Trump is aligned with American interests. And I want to play you guys another clip that shows you that and what he said. And here you go.
I said, let me make the deal first. I have to make the deal first. I don't worry about security right now. We have to have a deal, because right now, last week, 2,000 soldiers died on both sides. 2,000. And they're losing 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 a week. So as we sit here and we talk, people are getting shot and dying on the battlefield. You know, this could lead to a third world war. This was headed in the wrong direction. If this election were lost, if we didn't win this election, and by the way, we won it by a lot. That was a mandate. We won every swing state. We won the popular vote by millions and millions of votes. We won everything. The districts, you look at the areas of red, take a look at a map. This was a big mandate, and this was one of the things. I said, we're going to get this thing settled. If we didn't win, I think this could have very well ended up in a third world war. And
doesn't want. He hates us, you know? It's not about me. He hates Ukrainians. He thinks that we are not a nation. He thinks, and he shared these thoughts, I think maybe with your team also, I don't know. But with all the Europeans, in media, officially and not, he always said that there is no such country, such nation, such language, and such life like Ukrainian. No, he really doesn't respect all the Ukrainians, and he wants to destroy us. And you are right, Mr. President, that's 2%. This document, maybe other documents, it's a very good start, very good, but it will not enough to stop this person.
And I've known him for a long time. I've dealt with him for a long time. He had to suffer through the Russia hoax. You know, Russia was a hoax. It was all Biden. It was nothing to do with him. So he had to suffer through that, and he was able to do that. I think that he wants to make a deal, and he'd like to see it end. That's all I do. That's what I do. My whole life, that's what I do, is make deals. I'm in the
So as you saw, this was Trump sharing that he's aligned with American interests, and he's finally standing up for what should have been happening, which is America is finally getting something out of this whole funding of this war. Because if we had a rational president in the past 10 years, it would be like, okay, guys, just settle this. We're done. We're not going to continue, providing weapons. Yes, we know Russia was in the wrong, but this has to stop. If we had something like that, which kind of happened in 2019 with, when Trump was first time in office, but Zelensky actually, as you'll see later on, he actually was smirking at Putin, the Russian president, the whole time the deal was being signed. So, and then there was evidence that was found later on that Merkel admitted it, the German president or the prime minister, that they were actually building enough time for Ukraine to get rearmed so they could attack Russia. That was the whole point of the Minsk agreements. It seems like, based on the evidence of what happened the past few years, by 2022, Ukraine was just trying to bide its time to rebuild its military. And so they weren't very serious about just stopping the war. But they were waiting to be accepted into NATO. And again, that's a non-starter for Russia. They said, no way they can ever be accepted in NATO, because that means CIA and NATO troops would be on the border next to Russia, and that would be unacceptable to them. And it's like something that you can't even make a deal with unless you recognize that reality. Again, Russia is an authoritarian state, and Putin is a thug, but at the same time, you gotta work with people so that you don't cause nuclear world war. And the thing is that Putin, even though people don't like him, he has been respected by world leaders for the past 25 years. So there's something to the fact that there has to be some kind of diplomatic solution so that we don't have millions and millions and millions of people dying, no matter who initiated the war. The killing has to stop. Now, if Russia was invading the whole Europe, like Europe keeps saying, and fear-mongering that they want to invade everybody in America, then yes, there would be definitely a call for a kind of World War II kind of thing where you got to stop Russia. But the thing is, we're not seeing that. We haven't seen that. Russia's actually struggled a lot against Ukrainian troops. That's why Trump praises Ukraine, because they've actually done a really great job against Russian soldiers. And Russia, of course, now is beating them hardcore now after 3 years of fighting. But before that, it was very hard for Russia. They can't even take the full land of Ukraine. And that's not their main objective. But again, I'm just saying that, even Russia has struggled with a third world country like Ukraine. So that shows you that Russia is not as powerful as the fearmongers in NATO and Europe keep telling us that they are, that they want to invade all of Europe. How? 140 million people, a few million serve in the military. Most citizens don't want to fight take over Europe. They like Europe and Russia. So the thing is that it's not the same mentality as it was in the 1950s under Stalin. And reality has to be recognized. It just has to be recognized. Even though, yes, you have to be aware of Russia and you have to be aware of China and North Korea. Of course, we have to make sure that they don't actually start World War III. And so we understand that, but we also have to be aware of the fact that what is truth and what is fear. So in the next clip that you guys are going to see is where the fireworks start. This is where everyone has seen that, where Zelensky starts doing, a yelling match with JD Vance. Well, not really yelling. I mean, he accuses JD of yelling. JD wasn't. He was just being stern. But Zelensky accused him of yelling, and then his body language becomes very closed off. He also says no one had really helped Ukraine in the beginning. But that was a lie, actually, by Zelensky, because even though there wasn't like an official invasion of NATO troops, which again, even Obama knew, the traitor Obama, the deep state planted traitor Obama, and the Marxist Obama even knew that would cause immediate World War III. So they tried to play it, slowly. Even Obama could not full scale, send American troops, and NATO knew they couldn't do that either because that would cause nuclear war, a nuclear response. So they had to continue this war going. And again, the military-industrial complex had to make its money too over the past 10 years of this Ukraine-Russia war. So the thing is that there were foreign troops that went to Ukraine. Now, there were mercenaries. So there was a lot of mercs. There was thousands of mercs. There was people from different countries that were dressed as Ukrainians that went in. I mean, that's not hidden fact. There were billions of dollars of weapons being sent to Ukraine since 2014 until 2022 when Russia fully invaded, and of course, and more billions of dollars were sent. So the thing is that it's not like Zelensky was all by himself. Yes, he had troops because no one's going to risk World War III for Ukraine, but at the same time, he keeps thinking that he's there alone and nobody was there when people were like literally undying support for him. Trump says, and JD Vance, that no deal can be made by being in NATO. And Zelensky, this is Vance, and then allegedly under his breath says the B word, the dog, the female dog word, the BIT, whatever word he says, and you actually see in the video that I'm going to play, because he doesn't finish it like it's under his breath, but as a Russian speaker, I know that's what he was saying. Like, again, I'm not, I'm like 90% sure, but it seems like he was saying the B word, the B curse word at JD Vance, as JD Vance was saying that, I've seen videos where you're conscripting people off the street and forcing them to be gang pressed into the military, which America fought against being gang pressed. So Ukraine's not a real democracy when we're going against everything the Bill of Rights is in America. And they've shut down news stations. They've shut down the Ukrainian Orthodox Church of the Moscow Patriarchate because they blame it as intelligence asset of Russia. But the thing is that when you start with shutting down certain denominations of Christianity, then when does it stop? Because if there is a spy in the Ukrainian Orthodox Church, then you shut that down in the Baptist churches, Jehovah's Witnesses, Mormons, you shut down everybody. You start shutting down everybody. So it's like, where do you stop with all these shutting down religions? And so Zelensky then appeared to threaten Trump that Russia will attack America if they don't help Ukraine. And that's the thing that actually got Trump very upset too at Zelensky. See, this could have been discussed privately, but Zelensky didn't. I think, in my opinion, that Zelensky wanted the media to see of course, Trump and Vance knew that too. They played it up, but so did Zelensky, to get people in the world to see how of a poor man he is and poor Ukraine. Look how in the bad situation we are, which they are, but that's not how you deal with Trump and America, who's giving you most of the supplies that you need, besides Europe, of course. But the thing is that without the United States, Europe is going to collapse. They're never going to have enough armaments and supplies, and Europe knows that. So here's the clip of all that.
It doesn't work that way. I'm not aligned with Putin. I'm not aligned with anybody. I'm aligned with the United States of America, and for the good of the world. I'm aligned with the world, and I want to get this thing over with. You see the hatred he's got for Putin. It's very tough for me to make a deal with that kind of hate. He's got tremendous hatred. And I understand that, but I can tell you the other side isn't exactly in love with, him either. So it's not a question of alignment. I'm aligned with the world. I want to get the thing set. I'm aligned with Europe. I want to see if we can get this thing done. You want me to be tough? I could be tougher than any human being you've ever seen. I'd be so tough. But you're never going to get a deal that way. So that's the way it goes. All right, one more question.
I want to respond to this. So look, for 4 years in the United States of America, we had a president who stood up at press conferences and talked tough about Vladimir Putin, and then Putin invaded Ukraine and destroyed a significant chunk of the country. The path to peace and the path to prosperity is maybe engaging in diplomacy. We tried the pathway of Joe Biden of thumping our chest and pretending that the President of the United States' words mattered more than the President of the United States' actions. What makes America a good country is America engaging in diplomacy. That's what President Trump is doing.
Can I ask you?
Sure.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. So he occupied our parts, big parts of Ukraine, part of East and Crimea. So he occupied it on 2014. So during a lot of years, so I'm not speaking about just Biden, but those time was Obama, then President Obama, then President Trump, then President Biden, now the President Trump, and God bless, now President Trump will stop him. But during 2014, nobody stopped him. He just occupied and took. He killed people. You know what the contact line?
2015.
2014.
2014 and 2014.
2014.
Yeah. So
I was not here.
Yeah, but
That's exactly
but,
right.
Yes, but during 2014 till 2022, the situation the same. The people have been dying on the contact line. Nobody stopped him. You know that we had conversations with him, a lot of conversation, my bilateral conversation, and we signed with him. Me, like a new president. In 2019, I signed with him the deal. I signed with him, Macron and Merkel, we signed ceasefire. Ceasefire, all of them told me that he will never go. We signed him with gas contract. Yes, but after that, he broken this ceasefire. He killed our people and he didn't exchange prisoners. We signed the exchange of prisoners, but he didn't do it. What kind of diplomacy, JD, you are speaking about? What do you mean?
I'm talking about the kind of diplomacy that's going to end the destruction of your country.
Yes, but if you are not strong...
Mr. President, with respect, I think it's disrespectful for you to come into the Oval Office and try to litigate this in front of the American media. Right now, you guys are going around and forcing conscripts to the front lines because you have manpower problems. You should be thanking the President for trying to bring an end to this conflict.
Have you ever been to Ukraine that you say what problems we have?
I have been to.
Come once.
I've actually watched and seen the stories, and I know what happens is you bring people, you bring them on a propaganda tour, Mr. President. Do you disagree that you've had problems?
What?
Bringing people into your military?
We have problems.
And do you think that it's respectful to come to the Oval Office of the United States of America and attack the administration that is trying to prevent the destruction of your country?
A lot of questions. Let's start from the beginning.
Sure.
First of all, during the war, everybody has problems. Even you, but you have nice ocean and don't feel now, but you will feel it in the future. God bless.
You don't know that.
God bless.
You don't
God
know
bless.
that.
You will not have a war.
Don't tell us what we're going to feel. We're trying to solve a problem. Don't tell us what we're going to feel.
I'm not telling you.
Because
I'm
you're in no
answering on
position
this
to
question.
dictate that.
That's
Remember
exactly
this.
what
I'm not
You're in
dictating.
no position to dictate what we're going to feel.
You
We're
will-
going to feel very
you will
good.
feel influenced.
We're going to feel very
I'm
good and
telling
very
you,
strong.
You will feel influence.
You're right now not in a very good position. You've allowed
From the
yourself
very-
to be in a
from
very
the
bad
very
position,
beginning
and he
of the
happens
war.
to be right about
From
it.
the very beginning of the war.
You're not
Mr.
in a
Brown,
good position.
I
You
was
don't
in
have the cards right now. With us, you start
I'm
having
not
cards.
playing
But
cards.
right now, you
I'm
don't.
very
Yeah, you're playing
serious,
cards.
Mr. President.
You're
I'm
playing
very
cards.
serious.
You're gambling
I'm the
with the
president
lives
in
of
war.
millions of people.
You think-
You're gambling with World War III.
what do you
You're
think about-
gambling with
what do you
World
think
War
about?
III. And what you're doing is very disrespectful to the country, this country. That's
with
back
all
to you.
respect to your
Far
country.
more than a lot of people said
wearing
they
respect.
should
Have
have.
you said thank you once? This
A lot
entire
of
meeting?
times.
No, in this
Even
entire meeting,
today.
have you said thank
Even
you?
today.
You went to Pennsylvania and campaigned for the opposition in October. Offer some words of appreciation for
What?
the United States
What
of
are you speaking
America
about?
and the president who's trying to save your country.
Please, you think that if you will speak very loudly about the war, you
He's
can...
not speaking loudly. He's not
Yeah.
speaking loudly. Your country's
Can I-
in big
can-
trouble.
can I
Wait a
answer?
minute. No,
Can
you've
I
done a lot
answer?
of talking. Your country is in big trouble.
I know.
You're not
I
winning.
know.
You're not winning this.
I,
You have a damn
we-
good chance of
we are
coming out
staying-
okay because of
Mr.
us.
President, we are staying in our country, staying strong from the very beginning of the war. We've been alone, and we are thankful. I said thanks
You haven't
in
been
this
alone.
cabinet,
You
and
haven't
not
been
only
alone.
in this cabinet.
We gave you, through
I
this
said thank
stupid
you.
president, $350 billion.
You voted
we gave
for
you
your
military
president.
equipment.
You
and you
voted
men
for
are
your
brave,
president.
but they had to use our military.
What about
if,
West
if
speaking?
you didn't
You
have our
invited
military
me-
equipment,
you invited
if
me
you
to
didn't
speak.
have our military equipment, this war would have been over in 2 weeks.
In 3
okay?
days, I heard it from Putin. In 3 days, this is something
Maybe
new.
less.
In 2 weeks, of course, yes.
It's going to be a very hard thing to do business like this, I tell you.
To say thank you.
I said a lot of
except
times
that
thank
there-
you
except
to
that-
American people.
Except that there are disagreements, and let's go litigate those disagreements rather than trying to fight it out in the American media when you're wrong. We know that you're wrong.
But you see, I think it's good for the American people to see what's going on
I
over
understand,
there.
sir.
I think it's
I
very
understand.
important. That's why I kept this going so long. You have to be thankful. You don't have the
I'm
cards.
thankful.
You're buried there. Your people are dying.
tell you
You're
again,
running
I
low
know.
on soldiers.
Don't-
Listen,
don't, please,
you're running
Mr.
low on
President.
soldiers. It would be a damn good thing.
Mr.
And then
President.
then you tell us, I don't want a ceasefire. I don't want a ceasefire. I want to go and I wanted this. Look, if you could get a ceasefire right now, I tell you, you take it so the bullets stop flying and your men stop getting killed.
Of course, we want to stop the war.
But you're saying you don't want a ceasefire.
But I said to you,
I want a ceasefire.
with guarantees.
Because you'll get a ceasefire faster than an agreement.
Ask our people about ceasefire, what they think.
That wasn't
doesn't
with
matter
me.
for you what-
that
what
wasn't
this
with me.
means. It
That was
wasn't
with
with you.
a guy named Biden, who was not a smart person.
But this
That
is
was
your,
with,
this
that was
is
with
your
Obama.
president. It was your president.
Excuse me. That was with Obama, who gave you sheets, and I gave you javelins.
Yes.
I gave you the javelins to take out all those tanks. Obama gave you sheets. In fact, the statement is Obama gave sheets and Trump gave javelins. You got to be more thankful, because let me tell you, you don't have the cards. With us, you have the cards. But without us, you don't have any cards.
One more question to Mr. Vice President. I'm sorry.
It's going to be a tough deal to make, because the attitudes have to change.
What if Russia breaks ceasefire? What if Russia breaks peace talks? What do we do then? I understand that it's a heated conversation right now.
What are you
but
saying?
What
She's
if
asking, what if Russia
Putin
breaks the ceasefire?
What if anything? What if a bomb drops on your head right now?
But they have
Okay?
broken ceasefire.
What if they broke it? I don't know. They broke it with Biden because Biden, they didn't respect him. They didn't respect Obama. They respect me.
But all-
Let me tell you, Putin went through a hell of a lot with me. He went through a phony witch hunt where they used him and Russia. Russia. You ever hear of that deal? That was a phony Hunter Biden, Joe Biden scam. Hillary Clinton, Shifty Adam Schiff. It was a Democrat scam. And he had to go through that. And he did go through it. We didn't end up in a war. And he went through it. He was accused of all that stuff. He had nothing to do with it. It came out of Hunter Biden's bathroom. It came out of Hunter Biden's bedroom. It was disgusting. And then they said, oh, the laptop from hell was made by Russia. The 51 agents. The whole thing was a scam. And he had to put up with that. He was being accused of all that stuff. All I can say is this. He might have broken deals with Obama and Bush, and he might have broken them with Biden. He did, maybe. Maybe he didn't. I don't know what happened. But he didn't break them with me. He wants to make a deal. I don't know if you can make a deal. The problem is, I've empowered you to be a tough guy. And I don't think you'd be a tough guy without the United States. And your people are very brave. But you're either going to make a deal or we're out. And if we're out, you'll fight it out. I don't think it's going to be pretty, but you'll fight it out. But you don't have the cards. But once we sign that deal, you're in a much better position. But you're not acting at all thankful. And that's not a nice thing. I'll be honest, that's not a nice thing. All right. I think we've seen enough. What do
Wow,
you think?
so that's what we all saw a few days ago. The fireworks, the attack on JD Vance, calling JD Vance by his first name, which is kind of strange because again, I'm not for the hoopla of politics, but if you're in this kind of high level offices, you got to respect people or they're not going to listen to you. So it's kind of amazing how Zelensky calls JD Vance by his first name, which he doesn't really do that to Trump. I mean, I haven't heard. If you guys have any clips, you can let me know where I can find it, but I've never heard Zelensky disrespect Trump by saying Donald, Donald. So it kind of shows you that he hates JD Vance. It's obvious by his tone, demeanor, and language. But again, because that looks negative to Zelensky, Trump sees that too, and the art of the deal guy knows exactly what's happening at that moment, and so that's why Trump then says, "Look, you have no cards to play. We have the cards. We're the ones who've been funding you. We've been footing the bill. Without us, you have no way to sit down with Putin and talk about with a ceasefire." But Zelensky just has to keep saying. And again, I get it where he's saying from, well, how can we guarantee security in a ceasefire? There's no security. But I know what he's saying. He's saying we need to be in NATO. We need to have NATO troops. And Russia immediately says, no, that's not a possibility because the whole thing was started because Russia kept feeling encroached since 1991 by NATO. It's NATO that's moving eastward, not Russia moving westward, even though we all know Russian spies are around the world. We all know NATO spies are around the world and CIA, of course. So everyone knows, in the high level game of politics, James Bond politics, we all know that there are spies all over the world. So everything we see in the media, guys, you can't believe everything you see. You got to look at it deeper. You got to ask God for wisdom, like I do, because it's like you can't just believe what you see in the front of the TV. Even what happened with Zelensky and President Trump was not everything that it was played out to be. There was jiu-jitsu moves, there's martial arts moves being made that we'll see play out. And it might actually mean that Zelensky in Ukraine might have to do elections because he canceled elections. And I know the parliament did, so I know it's technically legal, but at the same time, it doesn't really represent democracy because America had elections during the Civil War, and we've had elections during World War One and Two. So the thing is that Zelensky doesn't really represent democracy in the way that Americans think democracy is. He's in some ways just as bad as Putin in some ways. I said in some ways. I didn't say he started the war, but I'm just saying in some ways he's not a good guy as well. So that's why I think Trump sees that there's both sides are kind of, they're not good players. Both sides want something, and there has to be some sort of compromise that makes both sides be happy, but also prevents World War III from happening. So the next clip I want to play is about how Lindsey Graham turned against Ukraine. If you guys have anything to know about Lindsey Graham, he is actually one of the most biggest warmongers in U.S. history, probably, who didn't see a war that he did not like. He basically supported a lot of wars in the past 20 years, Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria, whatever. So he loves war, just like neocon John McCain, just like Crenshaw, eye patch McCain that says he's going to assassinate or kill Tucker Carlson, which he should be put in jail for that because sitting U.S. president who's a Navy SEAL threatened to kill a journalist who's supposed to keep a tab on the U.S. government. That's just treason right there. But anyway, so Lindsey Graham turned against Zelensky, and I couldn't believe it myself because I've always known Lindsey Graham as being a warmonger and that he should have been kicked out of Congress a long time ago. But Lindsey Graham somehow, and of course Lindsey Graham supports himself, so he's seeing where the winds blow. And the same day he met with Zelensky before Zelensky met with Trump, they actually had a pretty good, conversation that the Senate was going to support Ukraine. But then after the disgusting spat that happened with Trump and JD Vance, Lindsey Graham turned around and said, we can't make a deal with this guy. This guy's not being thankful. He just wants to keep arguing and he doesn't want a deal. So check this out.
All right. So, what do I think? Complete, utter disaster. I've been to Ukraine 8 or 9 times since the war started. I understand the consequences of Putin's actions against Ukraine. I appreciate what the Ukrainian people have done. They fought like tigers. At the end of the day, I was hoping that this minerals deal, which would be transformative in the relationship, would go over well. I talked to Zelensky this morning. Don't take the bait. President Trump was in a very good mood last night. Somebody asked me, am I embarrassed about Trump? I have never been more proud of the president. I was very proud of J.D. Vance, standing up for our country. We want to be helpful. What I saw in the Oval Office was disrespectful, and I don't know if we can ever do business with Zelensky again. I think most Americans saw a guy that they would not want to go in business with. The way he handled the meeting, the way he confronted the president was just over the top. So I think the relationship between Ukraine and America is important, vitally important. But can Zelensky do a deal with the United States? After what I saw, I don't know.
What would he need to do, sir? Three questions. Senator Graham.
You spent lunch with President Trump. What did he say to you about his interactions and whether he thinks
he was shocked? He was very upbeat. I told Zelensky, we'll talk about security guarantees. We'll talk about ceasefires and how the war ends. This is a process. You have a new relationship with America, a $500 billion, half a $1 trillion deal that President Trump is proud of, that gives us an interest worth defending. Let's talk about the positive. But he was terrible at Munich, Zelensky, and I think he has made it almost impossible to sell to the American people that he's a good investment, that he is a good business partner.
Last question. Senator Graham. Hey, one at a time. One at a time. Christian Daytop. Senator Graham, thank you. Do you think President Zelensky needs to resign to resume these peace talks?
He either needs to resign and send somebody over that we can do business with, or he needs to change.
Now, after that clip, what happened later is Zelensky actually went to Fox News. And that's so weird because it's like, why is he going to Fox News? You know, it's very conservative, very MAGA type of news station. Not anymore because Fox News is very control opposition. We have all known it since they fired Tucker Carlson. But they're more conservative than CNN. And so it's kind of interesting that he went on Fox News. And on Fox News, Brett Barrett kept asking him, like, hey, shouldn't you, like, repair a relationship with Trump? I mean, should you have apologized and things like that? And, you know, here's what Zelensky actually said as well.
This is shouldn't this dynamic, if you're going to be like this, be behind closed doors? Not...
Of course. And
so do you regret that? Are you regretting that that happened today?
Regretting? Yes, I think it was not good. I think it was not good because we had a lot of different dialogues. I'm always open to media, but there are very sensitive things. I just want to be honest, and I just want our partners to understand the situation correctly. And I want to understand everything correctly. That's about us.
What?
Not to lose our friendship.
Okay, now you see, you know, Zelensky is trying to be cordial. He's trying to be self-controlled. He's trying to say, look, we want a good relationship with America. They're our best partners. We know that. And so that's the thing, though. No matter what you think, what side you're on with Russia and Ukraine war, or what Trump should have done, the truth is in the middle. The truth was that how it appeared to everybody. And the Ukrainian ambassador was embarrassed for Zelensky, how he talked to Trump and J.D. Vance. The Ukrainian ambassador was pretty embarrassed what happened, Ukrainian ambassador to America. And a lot of other people, like Lindsey Graham, turned against Ukraine, even though they were crazy supporters of Ukraine, and they love killing Russians. Lindsey Graham said that a few times to Zelensky, that, you know, it's good money that we're spending giving you because we love, you know, Russians. It's killing Russians. I mean, this guy's a psychopath, but that's how this Cold War warriors keep their mentality going. They have to justify the military-industrial complex existence. And so the thing is that after that conversation, you kind of saw Zelensky a little bit backpedal. Not really. He didn't really apologize, but then he actually started thanking everybody on Twitter, saying, because Trump and J.D. Vance shamed him. So he started, thank you. But we know that he's just doing that because he's trying to save face. Because again, he needs the United States. That's the whole point of this whole thing. The deal failed. He got nothing. But now he might come back later on and be like, okay, guys, you know, I'll just do a ceasefire because we need to just stop this war. So the next clip I want to show you is where Vance allegedly, again, purportedly, because we don't hear the full word, but because I speak Russian, I know that he was saying the curse word, the B word. But this kind of shows you the evidence that he was pretty upset at JD Vance. And so if he called him the B word, that is unacceptable as well in public diplomacy conversations that the whole media and the whole world saw. So check this out.
I have been to, I've actually watched and seen the stories, and I know what happens is you bring them on a propaganda tour. I've actually watched and seen the stories, and I know what happens is you bring them on a propaganda tour, Mr.
So now you have the whole day in the clips that I showed you, what happened with Zelensky meeting Trump, the spat with JD Vance and Trump, and then what happened when the Fox News, Lindsey Graham. And now I want to tell you guys, show you the truth of what really happened since 2014. Now it's going to be like a 5 to 8 minute clip, and it's going to have a guy who was formerly in the United Nations, who actually is pretty well known in the world of alternative media, able to meet the Russian president, and he's done relations with Russia in terms of like diplomacy, and he was working for the United Nations to bring like down nuclear weapons around the world. Whatever you think of him, the thing is that he states facts about what really happened in 2014 since the Civil War started, and then since it became a full-scale invasion, and how Zelensky, he says that Putin is the one who didn't want peace in Russia and they broke ceasefires. But the thing is that you get to hear the other side of the story of how the Ukrainian president Zelensky actually treated the whole process of the war with Russia, and how there's more to the story than what Zelensky said to Trump. And the thing is, I think Trump knows that, but he was, again, trying to be understanding and cordial of what the war with Ukraine, or how to solve this war with Ukraine. And so what you're going to see is that Zelensky actually wanted a ceasefire in 2019. I said this in the beginning of the video, whatever the cost. He actually says this in the clip. So something happened where Europe, or the UK, said that to him, like, to continue the war going, because we're going to fund you, we're going to supply you, NATO is going to be there by your side. And so something happened where he was elected for one reason, but then he went complete opposite. He became a guy who wanted to continue the war until, of course, then Russia took the bait and invaded Ukraine fully, which I agree should have never happened, because that did make Russia look really, really bad, of course. But the thing is that for some reason Russia took the bait and they invaded Ukraine. And now that's where the whole Zelensky says, now we have to win, we have to get our territories back. But what he doesn't realize is that you cannot get the territories back, and you can't go back to 2014, because there will be nuclear war that is going to happen if that happens. And so this is what you're going to see in the last clip, because you're going to understand where Zelensky was right and where he was wrong. Because even though he is defending his country from invasion from Russia, just like America would be invading from invasion of China, the thing is that you got to look at how the conflict actually began. That it wasn't just in a vacuum in 2022. There was 10 years of this war happening, almost 10 years of war before 2022, and where the CIA was actually meddling with Ukraine since 2014. Even the New York Times, and I could put the link down below, admitted that there was 12 to 14 CIA bases in Ukraine since 2014, since the revolution and the coup happened, which everyone now knows that the EU and Victoria Nuland, who worked for the Obama administration, funded Mr. George Soros, the agent of the New World Order, to overthrow the Ukrainian pro-Russian leaning president. And again, I'm not saying both Ukraine and Russia are very corrupt, always been corrupt, but since 2004, there was this desire for the CIA and the deep state to make Ukraine more pro-NATO, so that they could actually get Ukraine to NATO, because they promised them in 2008 that they would start working to get Ukraine into NATO. And that's the threat that Russia could not accept, because if that happened, then it would be right next to their brother land, and brother land, they would have nuclear weapons right there. And so that's why Russia could not fulfill, because they believe that, again, whether it's right or wrong, they believe, because I'm half Russian too, you know, born in Ukraine, raised in Ukraine, then I came to America. But the thing is that Ukraine and Russian are very well connected together. And in the Eastern Ukraine, there's a lot more Russians than there are in Western Ukraine. So that's why when the Civil War happened, it split between ethnic lines. And so I believe if you want to have peace, you know, you got to give people self-determination. And that's what happened in the rarest regions of Ukraine. Even though, yes, it was gunboat diplomacy and stuff, but the thing is that in order to prevent World War III, things have to be done in such a way where all the parties will be pleased and where we can stop future aggression. So the thing is that it's very complicated. It's very, very complicated in this Ukraine-Russia war. But again, in order to stop World War III, and we're talking about World War III here, guys, we're not talking about Russia's evil, Russia's got to pay, Russia's gotta Ukraine. Yes, that would be great. I would love for that to happen, but it's just not happening. It's not the reality. And the only way that reality can be changed is either God stepping in, and we're not God, so we got to pray for wisdom and God's will to be done. But also we got to pray for the right leader in America, Trump, who can actually make these things happen. He can bring all the sides to the table, and he can force things happen through the art of the deal, where both sides have to come and agree to concessions, or there will be nuclear world war. And I don't think anyone in the right mind, unless you're a satanic globalist who actually are running Zelensky, want. So that's why what Trump is doing is actually the right thing. He is trying to stop the killing of both Ukrainians and Russians, even though Zelensky himself says that, no, that's not enough, I need a guarantee. But that's not going to happen, because there will be no guarantee unless there is some sort of American presence in Ukraine. And that's what the whole mineral deal was about. And that's what Zelensky kind of destroyed with his attitude. And so I think that was part of the idea, to show the world that Zelensky is more interested in not stopping war at any cost, like he said in 2019, as in the clip you'll see, but that he's more interested in getting the funding and the weapons that he needs so that he could enter NATO and actually be able to defeat Russia militarily. Because there's another reason why he's still president and why he hasn't been overthrown, because he is being used as a useful puppet in order to start World War III against Russia. And we have to pray, again, like I said, this war should have never happened. Russia should have never invaded. But because it has happened, and the war is happening in Ukraine soil, there has to be a solution where we do not go into World War III. So pray, guys, that the right thing happens, even if it embarrasses every world leader. Just pray that the right thing happens. There's no nuclear false flag, that Zelensky doesn't cause a nuclear false flag, that he doesn't try to create some nuclear weapon materials, because he actually threatened to do that in February 1st, 2022, a few days before Russia invaded, which some people believe is another reason why Russia invaded, because he was afraid that Zelensky was going to build a nuclear weapon and attack Russia with it. Again, right or wrong, this is what the fear of Putin was. And so the thing is that we got to pray that there's no nuclear accident that's going to happen, because if that happens, that will change the whole world calculus for many, many years. So God bless you guys, and check out this clip.
Необходимо, конечно, продлить срок действия договора об особом статусе отдельных регионов Донбасса. И в конечном итоге придать этой норме постоянный характер, как это и предусмотрено.
Найперше завдання.
Our first task is a ceasefire in Donbass.
На Донбасі.
I assure you, I'll do whatever it takes for our heroes to no longer die.
I haven't heard a word about the civilians of Donbass, and I'm sure neither of you. Zelensky was speaking about the militants of the so-called anti-terrorist operation. At that time, eastern Ukraine had been under shelling for 5 years, and that's why the words about peace were so eagerly awaited. I would like to remind you that in 2014, there was a coup d'etat called Maidan. Did it happen on its own, without anyone's help? I agree with you. There is no doubt. The opposition seized power with the support of various radical right-wing movements. The eastern and southern regions of the country stood against the new illegal government, but the resistance was brutally suppressed. On May 2nd, 2014, Ukrainian nationalists burned 48 people alive in the trade union's house in Odessa. At that time, Zelensky, a popular actor in Ukraine and Russia, had zero reaction. But the Odessa events became a point of no return for the country. Residents of Donbass decided to separate from Ukraine. In response, Kyiv declared its citizens as terrorists and launched an army against them. Over time, this civil war escalated into an armed conflict with Russia. However, all of this was preceded by extensive preparation and support from the United States and Western countries.
The United States has invested some $5 billion in Ukraine since 1991, when it became an independent state again after the collapse of the Soviet Union. And that money has been spent on supporting the aspirations of the Ukrainian people to have a strong democratic government that represents their interests.
As a result, destroyed cities, chaos, and the loss of life on both sides of the conflict. In our country, it's usual to blame everything on Russia. But what did President Volodymyr Zelensky do himself to prevent this horror? Firstly, he could have implemented the Minsk agreements. In September 2014, Russia, Ukraine, Germany, and France signed them. One of the critical conditions for peace was granting special status to Donbass. December 2019, a joint conference following the Normandy format meeting.
It is necessary, of course, to extend the agreement term on the special status of certain regions of Donbass, and ultimately make this norm permanent.
Here comes the moment for Zelensky to repay debt, for wealth, for coming to power. Just look at it. He doesn't even hide his smirk during the speech of Russian President Vladimir Putin. Apparently, he already knew that the Minsk agreements were just a screen, covering the preparations for a full-scale war between Ukraine and Russia. As for Russia and Donbass, they were deceived from the very beginning. Furthermore, both Zelensky and Petro Poroshenko were eager to join not only the European Union, but also NATO. And NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg has been promising to accept Ukraine for many years. Of course, this irritates and angers Russia. Who wants to have a constant military threat at their doorstep? As an American, I wouldn't be happy either. For example, with Chinese military bases on the Mexican border. But Russia is different. Let's turn Ukraine against it, arm it to the teeth, and sit it into battle. U.S. foreign policy expert James Jatras accurately assesses what is happening.
Our policy, however, is to weaken and destroy Russia. Now, for that purpose, yes, we are interested in Ukraine. Ukraine is a club we can beat the Russians with. It has nothing to do with Ukraine, nothing to do with Ukrainians who are simply expendable people as far as these governments are concerned.
But it seems like the authorities of Ukraine don't really care. Besides, President Zelensky and his team are adding fuel to the fire.
I am initiating consultations in the framework of the Budapest Memorandum. If they aren't held again, or their results don't guarantee security for our country, Ukraine will have every right to believe that the Budapest Memorandum is not working, and all the package decisions of 1994 are being questioned.
The Budapest Memorandum is an agreement under which Ukraine gave up nuclear weapons in exchange for security guarantees. In 1994, it was signed by Russia, the United States, Ukraine, and the United Kingdom. Ukraine had to agree because it didn't have the money to maintain a nuclear arsenal. And recent history has shown that the world is very lucky it turned out that way.
Even if we couldn't maintain them, we could reduce the nuclear capabilities instead, and we could use it to blackmail the entire world, and they would give us money for the maintenance.
Imagine that, a nuclear power that blackmails the whole world, demanding money. Would you like to have such a neighbor? I'm sure you wouldn't. No one would. The president of Ukraine practically declares his desire to regain nuclear weapons, and Russia initiates a special military operation. To bring it to this point, Ukraine had to be made an enemy of Russia, or anti-Russian.